Welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast with Phil Graham. We help you master Facebook ads and give you an unfair advantage over your competition. Are you ready? Let's go.
What's up, podcast family? Welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast, episode 453. Phil Graham here, and today I'm going to be talking about how to try and make your Facebook ad budget go further in 2026. This episode should be great for everybody, whether you have a large budget or a small budget or in between, because everybody wants to try and get the most out of their money. And so today I'm going to share some things we're doing with the goal of trying to be as smart as possible with our budgets this year with Facebook and Instagram ads here in 2026. So I'm glad you guys are here. It is January 13th. I hope you are having a great new year. It's 2026. I am so excited. It should be an amazing year. And there's so much opportunity when it comes to ads and promoting your business. So I'm definitely glad you're here. Now, before we jump into the content, if you guys are looking for any help with your ads, whether that's one-on-one coaching or you want somebody to run them for you, for either one of those things, just go to my website, philgrahamdigital.com. That's philgrahamdigital.com, or DM me on Instagram at philgrahamdigital, and I'd love to connect with you. So let's talk about how to try and get the most out of your budget when it comes to Facebook and Instagram ads here in 2026. This is a really important thing. People ask me about this all the time. And I want to preface all of this by saying there are exceptions, there are variables. So it's not just one thing that always works the same way for every single account. So keep that in mind. But I am going to share some things that have worked for us and things that I'm going to be focusing on to try and get the most out of budgets this year. And there are things that I think you should be testing as well. And let's start with number one, and that is creatives and hooks. Now, when you have a great hook, when you have a great creative, great ad copy and angles, that can mean that your ad is very relevant for your ideal customers that you are targeting. And a relevant ad can sometimes have a really positive effect on your cost, not to mention potentially the performance of the ad itself as well. So part of having a relevant ad is making sure that you talk about your customers and clients more than you talk about yourself. And you start off at the beginning of your videos and on your headline with your ad. And in the beginning of your ad copy, you start off by talking about them, not you, not your product or service. Talk about what you sell and how it benefits them, or talk about the problem that they might have that you solve, or inspiring them in some way, but talking about them instead of you at the beginning of your ads, meaning the hooks, can sometimes make a huge difference. And that can become relevant. And that's something that's worked really well for us in many different situations. Another thing I recommend is to give value in your ads. I think that is so important because so many people run ads that are just spammy, crappy sales pitches. And that is why so many people dislike ads, because they're a bunch of spam. It sucks. But when you're actually running ads that give some kind of value, that can help you stand out. And that is such an important thing, especially with all the noise out there. So giving value can come in a lot of different forms. For me, it's education and teaching you guys things, but you might be like a clothing brand or something like that, where maybe you're not teaching. There's different ways to give value. You can share style ideas. You can inspire somebody. You can make somebody laugh with humor. There's many different ways that you can give value. You have to figure out what that looks like for your type of business and your ideal customers and clients. I highly recommend, though, that you guys run ads that have great hooks, that have great ad angles, that talk about your customers more than you, and you're actually giving value, true value, in the actual ad itself before they ever buy anything from you and before they ever give you their email address. Another thing I recommend is that you guys should be differentiating. So many people look and see what other ads are out there, especially in their industry, and then guess what they do? They create similar types of things. That is not going to help you stand out very well. Think about how you can do things differently, how you can differentiate, and how you can stand out. And then one last part with this creative section, when it comes to hooks, especially like in a headline, for example, try a couple different things. Ask a question. Maybe start with a bold question that gets your audience to think. That can be a really good hook if it's the right question. Or maybe you use some kind of a relatable phrase or scenario in the beginning of your ad copy, and even, in your headline, if you can fit it in there. Things like that can make a difference. So when you do all of these things, it can sometimes improve the relevance of your ads, maybe the performance as well in a lot of situations, and that could positively potentially affect your cost. Now, obviously, I cannot guarantee that because there's so many factors and variables, but these are the things that we're looking at to try and get the most out of our money in 2026. And by the way, there's more. That's just the first section. Section 2, this is going to be a lot quicker, but it's about consolidating campaigns. So this year, we're going to focus on doing fewer campaigns so that we can have larger budgets in fewer things. And that way we can speed up the learning process, which will hopefully lower our cost and make things more effective. We really want to feed Meta's algorithm with a lot of data, and not just data, but good data. And we don't want to spread ourselves too thin with too many ads that are just smaller budgets where it's going to take forever to get data to know whether it works or not. So that next section is just about simplifying, consolidating, and feeding the algorithm with fewer things at one time. Now, you can still test a bunch of things at one time if you have a large budget, and you can still test a bunch of things if you don't. Just do one test at a time and then stop that one and then start another one. If you've got a pretty decent sized budget for 1 or 2 ads instead of running 10, you should find out much quicker what works and what doesn't. And then you can get to the point where you're making decisions based off of enough data, quick and simplified versus having it take forever. Okay, a couple other tips for this next section, which I don't really have a name for this section, but it's just a few things that I was thinking about that I think are important when it comes to your cost and trying to get the most out of your money. And that is number 1, obviously try your best not to violate any of Meta's ad policies. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer, but I still need to say that because it's so important. Another thing that we're going to be doing more of is creating more of what's called native style ads, where it almost doesn't look like an ad or seem like an ad. It's something that would even look like it's on somebody's feed. It looks very native. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes those can get better CPMs, better engagement, and may have better relevance with your customers. If they don't notice an ad, but they notice that, even though it is an ad, then that's something that could be very good for you. So we're going to be testing a lot more native things this year as well. And a couple other tips in this section. I've said it many times on this podcast, but data, my friends, data is where it is at. It's not the most fun thing to talk about or learn, but in my opinion, it is one of the most important things that could determine whether you fail or succeed. So using data to make your decisions, not guessing, not randomness, having a strategy, playing it out, and then using data, and then testing appropriately with enough data. Don't just run something for 2 days and turn it off. I know if you're listening, I know there's some people listening that have done that. It's okay. Lots of people have, but I don't recommend it. Give it enough time. Give it a couple weeks, unless you have a really large budget, and test different things, not just creatives, not just images and videos or audiences, but test objectives, test different things on the landing page, on the other side of your ads as well. All those things can make a big difference and could potentially help you get more out of your ad budget. One thing I want you to realize is you could have the best ad in the world, but if your video, your headline, or your ad copy doesn't hook somebody or get their attention within the first 2 or 3 seconds, there's a good chance they're just going to keep scrolling, and that can be very, very expensive for you. So make sure that you really focus on great hooks and ad angles at the beginning of your ad, because it is so important. It can definitely affect cost, either negatively or positively. And our last tip here about getting the most out of your budget is by leveraging smart retargeting. So I do a couple different retargeting things typically. I've got overall retargeting where we're retargeting everybody in the warm audience, but I've also got what I call high intent retargeting. So for example, if you're an e-commerce store, if somebody abandoned their cart recently, that is high intent. They were almost going to buy something, and then for whatever reason they didn't. Maybe they just got distracted and had to stop browsing at that moment, but they had high intent. They put something in their shopping cart. That's a great opportunity to get back in front of them specifically, not just grouped in with all your other retargeting audience where they may or may not see it, but specifically just retargeting abandoned cart leads. Same thing if you have a lead ad or an ad that goes to a landing page where they become a lead. If they hit that lead page, but they don't become a lead, well, that's still high intent. They visited that page from your ad. They were interested enough to check it out. Why didn't they become a lead? Maybe they didn't hate it. Maybe they just got distracted. Maybe they were multitasking. Getting something back in front of them could make a big difference. You can also segment your retargeting to people that have visited your site a lot in the last 10 days or 30 days, etc. So you can really work with this. And then you do want to be careful that you also don't over retarget. Don't send the same ad to somebody 37 times. You want to check your frequency and you want to mix it up with your creatives if you are getting higher in frequency. But doing different types of retargeting can also be something that could move the needle for some of you guys. And it's definitely something that I recommend in a lot of situations. So I hope that was helpful. I tried to keep this short, sweet, full of value and very actionable for you guys. And there's more to it, but this is some of the basics that I recommend because whether you have a large budget or a small budget, you want to get the most out of it. And these are some of the things we're doing this year with that goal in mind. And as always, just a reminder, it's always important to point out that every business is unique. Results can vary. There's no guaranteed outcomes. So always keep that in mind. So thank you guys so much for listening today. Next week, I've got a great episode. I'm going to be talking about Facebook and Instagram ad creatives for 2026. Until then, episode 453 is in the books. Thank you guys so much for being here. And I will talk to you on next week's episode. Have a great week. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast. Please remember to subscribe and share this with all your friends. For show notes, more tips, and to learn more about Phil, please visit philgrahamdigital.com/podcast.